Welcome everyone. We have a another stream a day after the last one. This is setting a record here on Nerd of the Rings for number of streams in a week. And I had my browser pulled up, so I just heard myself talk. Sorry about that. So today I have a special guest, Elaine from Nerd Cookies. We were actually just talking on Twitter a bit. And the news of the orcs broke. And so I was like, hey, we're talking about orcs anyway, so why not join me on the live stream? We'll talk about some orcs. So Elaine, welcome to the show.
Hello. Yeah, welcome. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you haven't already, I'll remind you again at the end, but check out Nerd Cookies. It's a great channel. As I've said before, it's the only reason I know anything whatsoever about Dune, because I'm totally clueless about Dune, and I was really confused when the movie ended because it just kind of ended. So thanks to you, I was kind of caught up to speed. But today we are talking about orcs. So we just got our first look at orcs from the Rings of Power series. So we'll just go through them one at a time here. But the first thing that I noticed, Elaine, was, thank goodness, practical effects.
Oh yeah, this image looks amazing. Honestly, I wish this was the first thing I saw, but because it looks straight from the pages. This is something I would have imagined in my head, and the detail is the first thing that stood out to me. Is just so cool. And like you were saying, the practical effects, the makeup, the prosthetics, really good. Oh, and I think this one was my favorite.
Yeah, this one, it just reminds me a lot of the orcs that we saw in Lord of the Rings. Obviously, it's been well documented the difference in the orcs between the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit trilogies. The CG orcs, I was one, like, they just didn't do it for me the same way that the Lord of the Rings orcs did.
It makes a difference.
Oh yeah, it makes a huge difference. I think you can it feels much more real. Obviously, you get out of that uncanny valley CG situation. Like, I think the orcs in Lord of the Rings already, in terms of effects and stuff, have aged better, despite being older.
Completely agree. I think too, the actors too, when they can react to an actual thing, and that makes a difference in their performance. I'm sure it makes it easier on them to not look at a ball or something.
Oh, for sure.
Like that.
Yeah. So I did a poll at the start of when I scheduled this stream, and I asked, so Rings of Power orcs, love them, like them, don't like them, hate them. And this has been by far the most favorable reaction I think I've seen in a poll to releases from this show. We've got 40% that say I love them. 46% say I like them. So that is 86% of people either like or love these orcs. That's easily the best ratio I've seen on anything released from the show that I've done a poll on.
I think this is probably the best picture that I've seen as far as like character pictures, just because, again, the level of detail, just his skin, the way it looks, the eye here, the color, and what he's wearing.
It's kind of a very rudimentary helmet. It's not the excuse me, like the iron, the metal helms that we see later in Lord of the Rings. And we'll get into the article a bit as well, but they talk about the orcs are kind of in a state of chaos as a race because for those of you who may or may not recall, the War of Wrath would have happened shortly before this, and Morgoth and his forces got themselves, got it handed to them, we'll say. So they're not exactly in a strong position, which is unique because, in Lord of the Rings, Sauron is kind of the mighty player on the field, and here we have orcs are kind of the ones that are in tatters. So I'll be curious to
Yeah.
see if that, you know, if that's part of the storyline, is how we go from a state where, you know, elves and men are strong and the forces of darkness are weak, and then, you know, part of the story of this series, I would imagine, is how that flip-flops.
Yeah, that seems interesting, and of course very very lots of opportunities for stories that we haven't seen detailed before or adapted before, to see them in remnants and to see the dark forces growing over time from that point. Yeah, this is an interesting picture too. I
Yeah.
wish we could have seen the antagonist first. I think that would have really, and they're so striking, these
Yeah.
pictures.
Yeah, and I do think it has been reported that Weta was very involved in the orcs. Like, that is one of the things that
Oh, that makes sense.
I believe Fellowship of Fans has kind of gone out there and confirmed that the orcs are Weta designs, which that lines up. Like, you look at these and they fit well within, you know, what we would expect of the
Mhm.
Lord of the Rings films.
I like that there's like these bony helmets. Are
Oh
they?
yeah. Yeah, it
I
makes
think
me
that's what
wonder
they look
what
like.
that's constructed of. Now,
Yeah.
I did see Fellowship of Fans, he postulated that this was to protect them from the sun, on Twitter, which I couldn't tell if that was a real suggestion or a real hypothesis, or if it was just a joke, because I immediately wondered, like, what SPF does he have on his arms then, if this is
About
to
the rest of
protect
them.
him from the sun. Um, but yeah, and this, like, the, you know,
Just mud. That was the old school,
the
right?
mud, yep. And then like, you know, what is it? Like, it almost gives off a, I don't know, like a lizard dragon-esque hide or
Yeah,
something.
with some chainmail,
Chainmail, yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah,
again, it looks lived in, and
uh-huh.
yeah,
And it does kind of communicate, you know, um whereas in Lord of the Rings they're more uniform, you know, they have their armor, and they all, you know, there's some variations there, but they all have, you know, somewhat uniform armor. Like, this does communicate like a civilization that's kind of on the brink of ruin almost, you know, that, like, it kind of gives the, I think in the article that we'll get to, it talks about them basically being in a bad spot, you know, and they're scattered, and just kind of remnants of the armies that came before.
yeah, that's very and that comes across in this and what they presented here. Again, lots of little. It's in the details, and
Yeah.
they're important for a world like, or a universe like this.
Yeah.
They tell the story itself.
Yeah.
So we pick apart all the costumes and all the other the Hobbit and Lord of the Rings films because there's so much detail and so much
Oh gosh, yeah.
story behind those little things.
Well, yeah, it separates, you know, it separates, I said this in a recent video, it distinguishes it from just, you know, generic fantasy. You know, it comes across in those
Yeah.
details. So Sean says, this really makes me wonder how their voices will sound. Yeah, I wonder if we'll get, do you think we'll get similar accents for orcs that we got in the Peter Jackson films?
I would say that I hope that it stays true somewhat to it. It doesn't have to be exactly, but
Hmm.
you would picture that kind of, or envision that kind of voice coming out of this creature. I
Yeah.
can't imagine anything drastically different from what we've already experienced.
Yeah.
I think it would kind of throw it off if the voice didn't match the appearance.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
And the I think there again, another shout out to Fellowship of Fans. You know, they point out that the orcs are following a rumored character to be known as Adar, which is some dark presence that's a mystery for the show.
Hmm.
that may or may not be a known character in disguise. There's a lot of theories going around about that.
Yeah, I often wonder, like, are they still using code names, or are these, or did they, I don't know, for things to not give anything away? But I don't
Yeah,
know
I
why
don't
they
know.
would need to do that.
Yeah,
But
I would think by now surely they've moved past code names, especially if
yeah,
it's being referenced. Yeah,
but I don't
I
know
think
what Adar is. That was the name.
yeah, ADAR. Now
Interesting.
that's not to say that that couldn't be a um, a name in within the world that's like a pseudonym, for
Mm-hmm.
somebody that we know, like if for instance, if it was Sauron that was now heading up the orcs, which would make sense,
Mm-hmm.
he could be going by Adar. I do wonder, do you think we'll have, there's a lot of discussion about Anatar. Do you think Anatar will be someone else? Like they're going to keep even the Tolkien fans guessing as to who Sauron really is in disguise?
Oh, like he'll have a different.
Yeah,
Uh,
oh, here's I don't know. So
he'll be a
here's
covert introduction. Like
yeah,
he'll have been there the whole time, and
yeah, like this is John the elf. He's over here. He's cool. And then turns out like five five episodes later, it's like surprise, John
yeah.
is Anatar.
I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that, to be honest. I don't know if they would. I don't think we need to have those huge revelations. I feel
Yeah.
like
Like I
uh,
don't want him to get too cutesy trying to
yeah.
fool Tolkien fans. Like I'm
'Cause
okay with being in the know and like,
yeah.
you know, when I'm watching with friends or like watching with my wife who doesn't know this stuff and
Mhm.
she's like, "Oh, what's up with that guy?" And I'll be like, "Hee hee, I know what's up with that
Yeah.
guy." Yeah.
Yeah, I
Like
feel
I
like they
don't
would need to rely on that just to like keep
yeah.
it interesting, because there's like, I
There
mean, the
should be
story
enough
itself. Yeah,
yeah,
it
there
should be.
should be enough with the story itself for sure. Fritz says they look incredibly good, makes me worry less about the show. This is like I think this feels like a roller coaster that a lot of people are going on, honestly. Like
I feel that
everything that
way.
gets released, it's like, oh, well, that's not so great. And then something else comes out. It's like, oh, I actually kind of like that. And we just ride this roller coaster.
I know. Like I honestly can't. I can't reconcile this image of the orcs with Celebrimbor.
Right. Okay.
They
So
look
I
like from
was
two different universes to me. If you showed me that picture and in these, like I wouldn't like automatically think that's who
right.
is the forger of the rings.
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
So okay, since you brought it up, I'm gonna go ahead and pull up a meme because because
all the memes.
I saw someone share this meme and I didn't get someone shared it in our Discord, I think. But I didn't see who it was. So this is this is the meme that I literally laughed out loud when I saw
That
this
is
meme because
me.
it's kind of accurate right now. Like I feel like
It
that's a
is.
lot of people's feelings. They're like, "Oh, whoa, okay. Hello orcs."
I wish it
Anyway,
was consistent. I really do.
yeah.
Some images like the promo from, was it released yesterday, of the newest promo of the end,
The
showing the
end,
end,
yeah.
that part
Yeah.
looked cool. I didn't
Yeah.
care for the whole ad as itself because it was mostly an Amazon ad,
Cuz it's
but
an ad. Yeah.
yeah, it's like, does Amazon really need an ad for their shipping services?
Right. Yeah.
Just give us more of these images, like from the
Right.
actual
Yeah.
show. Like,
Right.
well,
Yeah.
people will watch if you do that. Focus
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah. I was like, why is this, why am I getting the warm fuzzies from an ad, for Amazon? Like
Yeah, it wasn't
like
even like a true like
like
trailer. I wouldn't.
right. Yeah. Like I want the warm fuzzies in an actual Rings of Power promo,
But
But
this image I
yeah. Oh,
love
this
too.
yeah.
In the
And
dark
then
caves and
yeah, and we've got
or
another one that
mines.
kind of goes with it here. Yeah, I love, man, the variety. Like it seems like a good variety of facial types and like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
they look freaky, which is good. This looks like the same helmet that we saw right here. So
Oh
I wonder
yeah, I
if
wonder if
that's the
it's
same
I
orc.
think it is maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like, yeah, he's got the same scales and everything.
The lighting of this is so cool, and it
Yeah.
looks like a skull. I think the other
Mm.
image too looked like he had a skull for a helmet, possibly.
Yeah. Yeah, it really
I don't
makes
know
me
what that
wonder
would be
what that
from, but
is.
yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, it makes me kind of think like there's
Trolls?
some old school this isn't what it is obviously, but
Yeah.
it makes me think of some of the older illustrations. I want to say it might be Alan Lee of Ulmo meeting Tuor, and he's like like he plays up like the fish like features, you know, and like he's got this helmet kind of thing. I'll see if I can find that, but that it kind of gives me that vibe, but that's not the connection obviously here because there's no reason that Ulmo would be connected with orcs, but
Yeah.
um
I like how they look like twisted, deformed in that way. Like their features look, um, yeah, like they've been slowly corrupted and twisted over time,
yes, yeah.
possibly indicating what we're gonna see. But I don't know.
Yeah,
But yeah, I like how they look.
do you think we'll see any whether be it in flashbacks of like corruption of orcs, like elves turning into orcs?
You know,
That'd
I
be
think that would be
interesting.
so cool. And again, those are the elements that I think most people were hoping to see. They want to see the
Mhm.
origins, um, and the time of the elves. You know, this is it's a very different age, and so I hope that they capitalize on that and tell those stories, because I think that would be really interesting,
Yeah.
and I think that's what a lot of people would like to see. But we'll see. I
Yeah.
hope there is some flashback. Well, at least we saw the days of the trees, those
Right.
indications.
Yeah.
So
That was another
um,
piece I felt
yeah.
was a strong piece of marketing. Like I felt like that got a lot of
Mm,
hype
yeah, yeah, that was
and
exciting to
looked
see.
good. So this is the image that I was thinking of. So it's Ted Naismith. I was
Oh,
confusing
cool.
my artist there, but yeah, there's no reason like this isn't obviously connected. But that was the first thing
Yeah,
that came to mind was just the shape of the helmet. I was like, oh, that looks like an Ulmo
like it
image.
came from a fish creature, some sort of
Yeah, like
leviathan.
kind of like some kind of fishy creature.
Now, I
Let's
will
see.
say, like the ice troll or snow troll,
Mm-hmm.
um, that was like okay to me.
Yeah.
How that hit, it was okay,
Yeah.
but it was a little generic to me. Just I don't know, but it was still interesting. But
Yeah.
this hits way better for me
Right.
personally. These images, and again, that might just be the practical versus CG
Right. Yeah,
aspect of it.
absolutely. Yeah. I really liked you know, the John Howe like on the Empire cover, they had the John Howe piece. Like the concept art from the snow troll or ice troll. I can never remember which one it is, snow or ice, but
And
um whatever it is. Yeah, like the concept art I really enjoyed. And yeah, I think a certain degree of that, you know, I'm the same way. Like this hits harder for me than the CG troll just because like the practical effects are always something that I feel really drawn to. So Michael points out, so is the Cockney accents. Yes, thank you. Of Tom, Bert, and William. So they all kind of have that Cockney accent was kind of a staple of the Peter Jackson films. So it'll be interesting to see if they go
oh
into
yeah,
that. Yeah. It's
yeah,
gotten to
that's
the point where
interesting.
like I can't do an impression of an orc that's not in Cockney accent. I'm not going to do it now because I
Aw.
know a lot of people don't aren't as big of a fan, uh but yeah. Paige, I think that these images are very promising. The broken armor indicates at least some lore being kept, such as the aftermath of the War of Wrath. Yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't know if you
Interesting.
know broken armor would. I mean, yeah, I guess in the sense that you know if they're diving into the idea that um, that the orcs would be in disarray after the War of Wrath. Yeah, that would totally make sense.
Yeah, I do like this helmet here too. Obviously, it's different,
Mm-hmm.
and again, the symbol is interesting.
Yeah, the symbol right here on the forehead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would that be of Morgoth-ish, or is that someone else's helmet?
Yeah.
It kind of looks like an evil symbol.
It does. Yeah, it's interesting. It looks like an evil symbol, but initially when
But
I
maybe not.
at first glance, I noticed like the gold color and I was like, "Oh, did he like steal this from an elf or something?"
That was my first
Because
impression too. Like, it's stolen, but maybe
yeah.
he added the symbol. I don't know, but
Yeah, cuz
that's a
like
possibility. It could be just the whole thing is stolen.
yeah, like going back to these, like I know like obviously the gold was very prominent in this shot from the teaser.
I did like
But I
that
don't
shot from the teaser. That was
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. And like I was theorizing, because this looks like an explosion, but I also wonder, depending on what battle this is, like that could be a Balrog, maybe. That'd be interesting.
Oh, just show us, man. Just show us what you
I
got.
know, right? Show us, give us Balrogs. I want to know if the Balrogs are gonna have wings, because that's a whole nother
Oh,
ball of wax. Oh.
I think that'd be cool either way.
Yeah, I mean, they look cool with wings, even if, it's up for debate whether they had them. Dustin, do you think the first batch of orcs Melkor created from elves were stronger than orcs created in later ages? Interesting. Huh. What do you think, Elaine? I don't know. I don't know. Like, would the first orcs be any more powerful than subsequent orcs?
Because
Would
of
they be
Melkor's
more,
influence, because of his presence, or
because like they were less removed from being elves, perhaps? I don't know.
I think that's intriguing to think about. It's a possibility that over time they were diminished, and maybe their numbers was their strongest trait.
Yeah, that's interesting. Obviously Tolkien, Dirk. Oh my gosh, you're ridiculous. The orcs and Tolkien doesn't dive very deep into that. And it's one of the
Yeah.
things that like he even, because of his, in large part because of his Catholic faith, like he kind of struggled with later was the idea, that this entire race of peoples would be written off as evil. Like, how does that jive with, the Christian faith where everyone is redeemable? And it like gets, you can get really deep into the theological and philosophical weeds on orcs. So yeah, that's probably a deeper discussion for a different day, but
Yeah. I do like
yeah.
that there's the room for imagination, and of course he already put a ton of details into it, but that there's still some room for mystery and
Yeah.
Theorizing, and that's what I like. Frank Herbert is like that to a degree.
Yeah.
He put a lot of detail into his world building, which is Dune. But there are some things that he just doesn't really elaborate on in just tons of details.
Yeah.
But I like that too, because it kind of lets your imagination fill the rest of that in, and kind of let your imagination go wild. I think that's what world building and writing and some authors are really, really good at. It's just inspiring the imagination. So it's just cool to think about.
Well, absolutely. Yeah. Because you have, I think it's one of the fallbacks or the downfalls of other created worlds is they try to explain everything, and very rarely are they able to do that satisfactorily. Whereas, I think Tolkien, hits that great balance where there is so much detail and so much you can go into and learn intricacies of, and the history of this sword. But then on the other hand, it's like, oh, there's these 2 blue wizards. What are they doing? Oh, maybe this, maybe that. And you have like mysteries. Like there's mysteries, just like there's mysteries in our own world. Like there's mysteries within Middle Earth, which is cool. Tom says they have sort of a human gaze, more piercing expressions. I think it's pretty terrifying, perfectly balanced. Let's hope we get more pleasant surprises. Yes.
Yeah, that's a good, and again, that's what kind of struck me. It was the eyes. And you guys see it in this one as well.
Yeah.
But the other one with the
Creepy.
blue eye, I don't know, was really stood out to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I like this one too. And the nose, like,
yeah. I think he's my favorite.
Yeah. Well, that's a good one.
The other two are pretty cool. And again, I like the differences.
The variety.
Mm-hmm.
And they have the black blood, I would presume. Now, who do you think this is in this image that we're seeing over the shoulder?
Yeah, look at that.
I kind of like overlooked.
Oh, there's someone else there. Yeah.
Yeah, like he's getting up in somebody's face.
I kind of. Well, I don't know for sure, but maybe an elf, and it kind of looks like.
It looks kind of like
Elrond's.
Yeah, see, so that's what I thought at first, was like the shoulder.
Yeah,
the shoulder thing kind of looks like what we saw with Elrond, with kind of like the feathers on his shoulder.
Yeah.
But I also wonder if it might be Arondir, the Ismail Cruz Cordova's elf guy, the one with the ent on his chest. Because we do see that scene in the teaser where he like has a chain on his foot and he's like flying through the air with like an axe, and I wonder if that might be connected.
Yeah,
to this
could just be lighting.
Yeah, it's hard to tell, like complexion, honestly.
And it's blurry, and the background's blurry, so
yeah, it's hard to tell.
But I would say it's an elf, most likely. It looks like the ear is kind of doing that. So.
Going up to a point. We're presuming a point there. Yeah. Let's see here. Will, thanks so much for the super chat. I just rewatched the last Alliance scene in the Fellowship of the Ring, which is a great scene, by the way. I saw many similarities in those orcs compared to these. This is a giant plus. Yeah, so I think I've actually got... Yeah, so one of the Spanish Lord of the Rings content creators, Tolkienverse, on Twitter, I believe, pointed this out, how there's some similarities, taking some side-by-sides of Lord of the Rings orcs and the new ones.
Yeah, the eye color, at least for the bottom right, is similar to those other two. The teeth and...
Yeah, I mean, it's not a stretch of the imagination to see that that Weta was involved in both.
I wish there was just more consistency as far as the other images we've gotten, or that we've seen. Again, this looks like it could.
That's where this comes in. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I just have such an issue with that. That is not what I envisioned of Celebrimbor.
Celebrimbor. Oh, I know. I love the Shadow of Mordor look. Is peak Celebrimbor.
That's what I pictured.
Personally, I just feel like I always pictured him as being a chip off the old block of his grandfather in terms of looks, and that.
And they say he has dark hair, don't they?
Right. Yeah, I think they do. I think. And Elrond too, like Elrond's hair is surprisingly light for as dark as we know it to be described.
Now, I can't remember which. There was one elf that I did like. And it is probably he does have long hair.
Gil-galad, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Gil-galad looks exactly like he does in the Peter Jackson prologue.
Like, yeah, it's like that's
the actor looks just like the same guy, which is why I've seen people say like, oh well, they had to change up all these characters so they don't look like Peter Jackson ones. And I'm like, dude, Gil-galad looks exactly the same. You can't tell me that they had to be different.
No, yeah, that looks the closest to what I thought. the elves were going to look like. That looks that
Yeah,
looks good. And then you have
looks...
his image, and that's not what.
Yeah.
That doesn't look like it belongs in this same show.
Now, I have seen a lot of people who've seen the actor who plays Celebrimbor in other things. Like I actually have not. It's weird that it turned out like this, but I haven't seen a single actor from the show in anything else except Ismael Cruz Cordova was like in one episode of Mandalorian, I guess.
He was?
Yeah, he was. So the one where they have to break in and like gosh, I'm blanking on the name of the alien that he plays, but like they've got the blue skin and they've got the double things coming
my
off
God,
the
no.
back. Yeah, I know, right? See, my
I know
mind
what
was
it
in
is, but
Tolkien
my
mode.
brain's on.
It's on Tolkien mode, right? You have different modes as nerd fans. But yeah, so he was in the episode, the first one with Bill Burr's character.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah,
okay.
Where they have to break into the prison, and he's the guy that they break out.
Twi'lek. Oh my goodness.
Twi'lek, yes. Oh, thank you.
My brain was just not working. Like I'm thinking about.
I can't.
I'm also in the middle of like writing a Dune lore one, and I kept thinking of a Tleilaxu, and like that's not what this is.
It's tough with these. You gotta trying to keep these fandoms.
Anyways,
straight.
But okay, I actually did like that episode. I would never guess that was him.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't have either.
Blue and
right. Yeah,
was
so
he
that's
blue or pink?
He's the only actor that I've seen, going back to my original point, off the tangent here.
Sorry.
He's the only one that I've seen in anything else. So I don't really have anything to base off any of the actors off of. But people who've seen the actor for Celebrimbor and other things said they're really excited to see him play Celebrimbor, even if they aren't as big of a fan of like the design they've gone with. But
I'm sure they're all good actors. I mean, they're.
You would hope, yeah.
Yeah, I would hope. I think a lot of it comes down to directing and dialogue, and the actor can only do so much with what they are given. So I mean, you can have. I've seen great actors who I didn't like their performance in other things, and you could tell that writing and the directing is an important job, and if they're not doing their job, it affects the performance. So I think he was in Downton Abbey, but I've only seen a little bit of that, and I don't remember him. So of the actor who plays Celebrimbor, I think someone said he was in Downton Abbey.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's the movies or the show. I haven't seen the movies.
Oh, I didn't know that there was multiple things of that. That's not my jam, but no digs at anybody who that's their jam. Whatever, your jam is your jam. All right, so let's look at.
My mom loves that show.
The article. Oh, really? See, I'm one of those.
She probably knows who he is.
Is it the one about like British royalty, or is that something different?
Yeah, I guess they're royalty.
I don't know. Oh, the Crown is another one. I don't get. I like.
Oh, the Crown is different. Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
I think Downton Abbey is based on real events, but it's not an actual real family. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway, we'll get back to the Tolkien.
I'm sorry, I keep going on tangents.
No,
Star Wars and Downton Abbey.
Tangents are fun. We had to figure out Twi'lek. That was
gonna
bug me.
The chat helped with that one. Thank you, chat.
Yes. Well done, chat. All right. So, in the article here, they talked with some of the behind-the-scenes folks involved in the show. So, at the end of Tolkien's First Age, the orcs were decimated nearly to the point of extinction in the War of Wrath, which we referenced earlier. Since the Rings of Power will be taking place in the Second Age, we meet the creatures as they're scattered across Middle-earth, thousands of years before they become the earth-shattering force that helps level the realms of elf and man. Orcs are low in numbers, down on their luck, and fighting for survival. So, like you said earlier, that does seem to come across in the artwork or in the images here. Like just looking at their, how they're dressed, they look like a civilization down on their luck, I would say.
Yeah, and it's so important, and this is why like some images or like I'm less excited for, only because details are very important. It's important for this story. Just look how these images inspire the imagination. They tell a story just on their own, just looking at it.
Yeah.
You see like you get an idea of the history of it, and so it's not to be taken lightly. Just what someone's wearing, their hairstyle, or facial features, because they can do so much for the world building. And so I'm very impressed with what these images have done, and I just wish there was that consistency. But this is probably one of the most important things to get right. So that's nice to see.
I like Sean called me out on the ads that it's showing me. You might get a hint for the kinds of
is it listening to our conversation?
The cosplay that been looking at for Comic-Con. So I'll just leave it at that. But I've got a very unique idea, and blending a couple of fandoms together. So we'll see. All right, so they talked with Lindsay Weber, who's an executive producer, who had worked on Star Trek and Mission Impossible franchises. I'm not really a Star Trek person, but I do dig the new Mission Impossible movies. Those are pretty legit.
I love those movies.
Yeah, they're so good. And Jamie Wilson is what they call a sevener, which means he's worked on every single live action Lord of the Rings project. So all 3 Lord of the Rings movies, all 3 Hobbit movies, and now this series, which is pretty awesome. Let's see here.
That's a cool distinction.
Yeah, that's a cool tidbit. Yeah, I'm sure that's a dwindling number of people that can say they've worked on every Middle Earth adaptation. It makes me wonder if he's doing anything for War of the Rohirrim, because that would be, complete the set, so to speak. Well, I love Orcs. Weber starts. I love creature design, so I'm happy to talk about this stuff. JD and Patrick, the showrunners, the very first page of their Bible was about orcs. That's interesting that was the first page. They have a real passion for them. They love practical prosthetics and design, and they felt that they needed exploration, given that this is the Second Age and thousands of years before the events of the Third Age. It was really important to them to treat them as their own culture and explore their world on its own 2 legs in its own right. Interesting. That kind of gives the sense that we're going to be talking more orcs than I might have expected. Them just being kind of like the faceless army, so to speak.
Well, it's obviously that was their first priority, which you can tell.
That's interesting. Yeah, isn't that interesting? That would be the first page.
Yeah.
Like you would think. I don't know. If I was talking the Second Age, I think Numenor would probably be the first thing I would think of. Interesting.
I guess, different approaches. That's interesting. Some feel they need to build maybe the antagonist first to build the protagonist. And
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, they do say, there is the saying that your story is only as good as your villain, and such. All right, because this is a wildly different age for the orcs, with the timing being much earlier than the orcs we've seen on screen up to this point, and their numbers being so diminished, it was important that they look and feel different from the creatures we already know. We spent a lot of time talking about what it would mean to be an orc in the Second Age. It felt appropriate that their look would be different, part of a wilder, more raw Second Age Middle Earth, closer to where the First Age ends. As we meet them, they're not yet organized into armies. They're a little more scattered, and they've been scavenging. So it's just a different time in their total story. Interesting.
Yeah,
like
that's
we said,
interesting.
Yeah, that kind of goes into the whole, wilder. Yeah, the wilder look. They seem, I guess, more primitive, you could say, than like the orcs that we see in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, and I'd say that's probably because they're scattered and like they were saying, scavenging, and they're not really a cohesive unit. I guess that would make sense. How they look, I guess, and what's happening in this tumultuous time. And then different, and come back to the third age. That they have that Sauron commanding them. They have unity. They have a uniting force.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
It'll be
interesting.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see if we see any fighting amongst the orcs like we get in Lord of the Rings. Obviously, we've got rivalries between like the Morgul orcs and the Barad-dûr orcs that we get in Return of the King. It's more so in the books, I guess, that you get a sense of it a bit. In the films, obviously they fight and wipe each other out, but that's a little bit more pronounced in the books, I would say. Here we have a random question from Desi. Is it true the statue we saw on the teaser is Earendil? Yes, it is. Yep. That's Earendil, folks, in Numenor. The statue with the guy holding out his hand. It's Earendil. We need a Nerd of the Rings cameo in all Lord of the Rings shows / movies. Oh my gosh.
Oh, that'd be cool.
That'd be cool. I don't know.
As an
Okay,
orc,
so, yeah, I was gonna say, as an orc, that would be kind of fun. I kind of
That's probably the most
playing
fun.
villains. Yeah, it's gotta be, right?
For the extras.
Yeah. And like Jed Brophy, it was famous for playing all kinds of different characters in the films, and then Nori in The Hobbit, and he played a few different orcs. So yeah, that's got to be fun.
Do you think Stephen Colbert? Do you think they'll give him a cameo?
I don't know. See, like I don't mind cameos, but I like when they blend and they're not as pronounced, or they don't like take you out of it. Like I actually kind of like, for the most part, Peter Jackson's cameos are pretty like blink and you'll miss them.
Yeah, like I can't think. The guy from Flight of the Conchords.
Oh yeah.
I liked his. I love his.
Yeah, and like, with
very
him
subtle
especially,
though.
Yeah, he's pretty subtle. Well, then he comes back for the Hobbit films too, and he has like actual lines of dialogue and everything. But yeah, like, and he was made up well to where he wasn't, perhaps as immediately recognizable, I think.
Yeah, he fit really well. It wasn't like so cutesy that took you out of it. It fit within. Stephen Colbert is a little it's a little jarring, but
all right, so I'm gonna put this up for the chat because let's have some fun with this. So what race would I be if I cameoed? I'll give you the options here. I'm not gonna put elf because I'm not an elven feature kind of guy. So I'm gonna say dwarf, orc, man, or hobbit. I don't know what else. Put like troll.
I could probably only pull off hobbit or dwarf.
Harfoot. You shut up, Sean. You know how I feel about Harfoots. Don't even start. Don't even start. Fell beast. Balrog. Oh my gosh. Got some good options here. So another nugget. So I was just browsing over the article here. There's some female orcs that I truly loved, but there's one orc in particular who's very, very tall and strong, has a particularly enjoyable fight with one of our elven characters that I suspect will be or hope will be a favorite among fans. So we've got a very, very tall and strong orc. Maybe that's the one that we saw with the helmet that looked like it might have been up in somebody's face. Maybe that's the one. And then also female orcs confirmed. That would be interesting. I don't know if you get this question a lot, but I get the question a lot of how did orcs reproduce? And like I think the Peter Jackson films kind of had a part to play in this, where they think that they're like birthed in pods, like
They
I'm
sprung
like,
out of the ground,
yes,
like
spring out of holes in the ground. Yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah,
That's interesting, right? Like, huh.
I never pictured, I don't know, I never pictured
Like being able to tell the difference even.
yeah, that, like, did we see one? And because that would make sense to me if they're kind of indistinguishable.
Yeah.
Especially if
Right.
there's
Yeah.
like, how would you tell? How could you tell that it's
Yeah.
female?
Yeah. I don't well, and
Um,
it's the same thing, that Gimli hints to
gonna
with
have
dwarves.
boob armor.
Oh my gosh, I hope not. Oh my
You know,
gosh.
well, I just feel like they
I
should
hope
be
not.
like kind of twisted beyond recognition. They're not really,
Right. Well, yeah, because they've,
yeah,
like orcs themselves have kind of lost what made them elves, so like it would make sense that they're all, you know, like you said, twisted beyond recognition. Like they're a whole
yeah.
separate thing entirely. Yeah. So I'm curious. Maybe, yeah. Oh, Rita brings up maybe by the voice is how you'd be able to tell. Oh my gosh. Maybe the
It's just
intimacy
higher pitched.
coordinator, maybe the intimacy
Okay.
coordinators for the orcs. Oh my gosh.
I mean, I gotta be honest, I never thought, I don't know. I never thought about female orcs.
Yeah, I
I
never
don't
did either. I never did either. I don't know. I like the idea that like they're primarily indistinguishable. I think if they're
hmm
I hope they don't go too far to where it's like, like you said, boob armor is one of those
No.
things. Like
Yeah.
that's like thank goodness that Peter Jackson didn't do that with like Eowyn, like he could have made her in like an armor bikini or something ridiculous. But he didn't, thank goodness.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
they're at the heart of it, it's practicality for that just in what was on hand.
yeah.
What
Yeah.
that would make sense. So yeah, but as far as like how could you tell? I can't.
Right.
I don't know
Yeah.
how we'd be able to tell if it's female. Maybe the color of their skin
Oh,
or like
interesting.
someone said voice, but I don't know how I feel about that.
Or costume. Yeah, like it could be costume design. Like I don't know. I mean, they're all kind of in rags and stuff
I mean, it's
at,
not out
at
of the
this
realm of
stage, but
possibility,
yeah.
but it's yeah,
Yeah, I mean, there
very
certainly were female orcs. Like we know there
yeah.
were
But
female
again,
orcs.
it's just
So
like you picture them like being kind of twisted to where it's I don't know, they're not really recognizable as anything
right.
that would make
Yeah.
them yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. So if we see pictures of female orcs and it's like, whoa, hello, then they've probably not not done it right. I'm sure there's some corner. Oh gosh, I'm going down a bad rabbit hole here. I'm sure there's some corners of the internet where orc interests is something. Anyway, we'll get on to the next super chat. Cyber Hobbit, dig us out of this hole. Hey Matt, really dig the designs of the orcs. Some much needed positive news for the Rings of Power. Picked up one of your Nerd of the Rings trucker hats. Been wearing it every day for the past week. Keep up the great work. Awesome. Sweet. Got one of the dwarven hats. I'm not wearing. See, and you would comment that when I'm not wearing mine. But the hat he's referring to right there says "Nerd of the Rings" in Dwarvish, translated from by my friend the Dwaro scholar. So that is actual Neo Kuzdul.
That's awesome.
It means the technical translation is enthusiastic knower of the rings, because there's not a dwarvish word for nerd, but we made one up. So there you go. All right, so we'll end the poll here. 46. See, these are my people. They know me. 45% say that I would be a dwarf. There we go.
I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah. They know me. They know
Yeah.
me. All right, let's see if there's anything else we can glean from this article. Given that these orcs look so much different from their future selves, Weber was able to break down how they approach their appearance. The way I described it to my team, it's a bit like these are the baby versions. They're not actually babies, which is good, but it's them coming out from the darkness. So this early on. So for example, if you go to past films about them, you'll see them and they're quite battle damaged and scarred and all that kind because there's been lots more battles. This is kind of before the next range of big battles, so there's a lot more smooth texture. There's still wrinkles and lines and shape and form, but they're not so battle scarred. But they're dealing with some skin conditions because of their exposure to the sun. Interesting. They're coming back out for the first time again, so it's all a bit new. That's why they're not as dark skinned, necessarily not as muscly, and not as battle worn as you'd seen in previous productions. That's interesting. The being out in the sun, like it sounds like being they're like I feel like it was mentioned in the Peter Jackson films how they don't like the sun, but we didn't really see that aspect, except for, obviously Sauron sends like the cloud to Minas Tirith, before his armies. But yeah, we don't really get the any kind of orc interaction with the sun in the films.
Yeah, I mean, I like that they're thinking about that, and that has like really diving deep into the lore, their history, and how that influenced what they would look like. I'd like to hear what they were saying about the modern elf haircuts, but but this is interesting. This is from, they're digging deep, and this is and it's part of the story. They're what they look like. They're that's really interesting. I'm happy to hear this.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's nice to be happy about something, I should say.
Right. Yeah. Like I said, it's a roller coaster. We're all on this roller coaster right now. Tangent here. Why are dwarves always Scottish? Is it just because of John Rhys Davies, or was it the case before the movies? I think, John Rhys Davies' performance as Gimli definitely cemented that sound. But we do know that, Tolkien took a lot of influence from a variety of, world mythologies. Like the dwarves in particular have some kind of Norse roots and such. Yeah, I think it's one of those, you kind of have to pull from real world accents to give some authenticity. Like you can't really manufacture. I think it would be hard to manufacture like fully original accents, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that works with the Cockney accents, I guess, with the
right. Yeah,
with the orcs. And it's interesting that there is some consistency across the board in that regard. That that they don't all, each of them have like wildly different accents, but it makes sense that if they're from the same area, that they would
sound the same.
Like,
so if you go, by that logic, like, oh, Gimli's would have come from Thorin's people, Doran's folk, and they all live together, so yeah, they would all sound alike, I would think. Fiery Wolverine, good question here. Why are you taking such a soft approach to this? They're literally making another generic fantasy show. So I would disagree with the idea that I'm taking a soft approach to this. I would say that I'm taking a measured approach to this. I mean, I'm not going to sit here, this will probably come up once every live stream, so I might as well just go ahead and say it. But, there's going to be some things I like about this show, and there's going to be some things likely that I dislike about this show. That's usually the case with about any show or movie that I watch, with very few exceptions. And yeah, so like if you're expecting me to go off the rails, complaining about every little thing that comes out, that's not my style and not the type of person I am. So yeah, that's not what you're gonna get here. You're gonna get my honest thoughts. Like today, I'm looking at these orcs saying, I like this orc design. So that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
If we were talking about Celebrimbor, like we were earlier in the stream, if you missed it, I said basically I don't like the design from this show near as much as I like the design from the Shadow of Mordor games. I think that is like peak Celebrimbor. So yeah, I mean, I'm gonna keep it on the level with you guys, and I've always said from the start 2 years ago that I'm gonna judge the show when I see it. I think it's kind of premature to write off an entire show before seeing an episode. So yeah, I'll give you my thoughts, but yeah, if you're looking for me to fly off the rails on every little thing that I might not like, then you're on the wrong channel. But yeah, so I'll keep it
Yeah.
real with you guys, and
I
I
really
think Elaine's the
appreciate your
same way.
honesty too. I think most people appreciate your honesty, and at the end of the day, that's what I think with most things. There's things we like and things we don't like about
Yeah.
shows. If we're talking about other fandoms, there's things I think with Star Wars, there was always things that I liked and things that I didn't like as much or even disliked. Or I liked more video games more in certain books more than certain films.
Oh, for sure.
So yeah, there's nuance in everything. Nothing's ever rarely black and white where you just either love everything 100% or hate everything 100%. Usually it's like there's images I like and things that I have not liked. There's comments that I've liked from the showrunners and the staff involved in this, and there's things that really concern me. I think that's true in
Make you
most
scratch your
things.
head. Yeah.
Yeah, I think cautious optimism is usually how I try to approach things, and that's some are more cautious, some are more optimistic. That's just we can only be true to ourselves and our opinions.
For sure. Yeah, and just like I would say, and not to, I kind of tongue in cheek said, this isn't the right channel if you're looking for me to fly off the rails. At the same time, like feel free to disagree with anything I say. If you hate these orc designs, you can say that. You have your own opinion, man. Like I said last stream, I'm not going to tell anyone how to fan. Like you should fan how you want to fan, and your opinions are yours. Like there's no reason for me to make you try to uh there's no reason for me to be mad at you for having a different opinion, and there's likewise no reason for you to be mad at me for having a different opinion. So yeah. But anyway, we'll get back to the topic at hand. I will say what you said about nuance. I think you had a tweet earlier today that was on a totally separate topic that we won't get into. But yeah, treasure the nuance, folks. Like there's a lot of good conversation, and I would say even fun to be had in the nuance. And that's what the conversations that are worth having value the nuance. So yeah.
So I did have a question to kind of put us back to the article. So they said they were scavenging. The orcs were in the open more. Do you think they'll focus on an orc story, like an orc protagonist? Should they even do that?
Oh,
what do you think?
I don't know about an orc protagonist. No,
well, not in the sense that they're like a hero, but like in the sense that it's,
like
the main.
It's the story that we're following.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so you're thinking kind of like Gothmog or Azog from like the Peter Jackson films, where there was like a orc at the forefront that we were kind of following their story a little bit. I guess Azog would be kind of like the most that we've seen an orc be, driving a story.
They do seem to put a lot of thought and care into their activities, and so I wonder if that means if they're going that way.
I could see that, and like that could even be interesting. See, my first thought when you said that was like, are they gonna go with the like sympathetic villain kind of thing? And that's one thing that I really have pushed back on with when it comes to Sauron. Because I've heard people say like, oh, well, he wanted to repent after the first stage. It's like, no, he wanted to because he got caught. Like, it wasn't that he wanted to. And then he didn't. Don't forget the fact that he didn't repent. But yeah, like I hope they don't do the whole like, oh, well, they're just misunderstood or something. That to me, I'm not interested in
Yeah.
that. I want my
I
bad
agree with
guys to
that.
be
I don't
bad
want that.
guys. Yeah. Yeah. But no, like following a villain can be interesting. Like, if a villain has a vendetta, like the Hobbit movies obviously weren't the best executed, but the idea of this line of orcs and this line of dwarves, especially if I would have preferred it if they kept it to where Balg was the main bad guy and Azog had died. Like I think that could have driven home this idea of like these two lines of orcs and dwarves being in this struggle throughout the generations kind of thing. So yeah, all that
Yeah.
to say, I think it could be compelling stuff if we've got some good, strong villain characters. So I'm not opposed to one of those being orcs by any means. Yeah. What about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I hope that they step up the villain game. I think in this, for sure, there's just the lore itself calls
Yeah.
for complexity and following a really interesting dynamic antagonist, or I don't know. There's some gray areas to be had
Mm-hmm.
in that, especially with the orcs. I think there could be some interesting things. Um, Again, at the end of the day, I just hope they stay true, that it fits, that they
Mm-hmm.
stay true to the spirit of the
Yeah.
author's work and what they've said so far about the orcs. It's interesting to see how the comments about it, and what we've seen that kind of goes along with these comments, these images.
Mm-hmm.
They're thinking about the detail and the history, and
Yeah.
I hope that comes across as getting some really interesting orc characters, because so
Yeah.
far this is the only image I think that has been really stand out to me as Middle Earth is
Mm-hmm.
these images, and I really hope that they give us more to see that's like this.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
it's not generic, that doesn't feel generic.
Right.
This what he's saying and what the images to coincide with it look, like Middle Earth creation.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I think if there's one thing that's been consistent, it's the things that look and feel Middle Earth, and like they feel more what we'd expect from Middle Earth, and more like the closer it is to Tolkien's canon, like the more people have reacted positively, I think. And like the more um canon characters and locations and stuff. So like the two trees is another one that I thought like that was a good piece that we saw that fueled a lot of
yeah,
speculation and stuff, because that's obviously predates the second age by a lot. um so things like that are exciting, like things like this image of the orc these images of the orcs are exciting because this is stuff that feels familiar. And that's one of the things that I wish we did see more of consistently throughout. um and this is an interesting question, since we were talking about we mentioned the two trees. Is it confirmed that Amazon have special license for limited access of the Silmarillion? So it's not confirmed, like there's nothing confirmed or official, but there are plenty of rumors that they might be able to get approval on a case by case basis for things beyond just the appendices. So if there's something from Unfinished Tales or the Silmarillion or History of Middle Earth, and they say, hey, we would like to use this, then the Tolkien estate, again, this is just a rumor, but then the Tolkien estate could say, yes, you can do that. Stamp of approval, whatever. Or on the flip side, they could say, no, we're going to hold on to that. You can't touch that. So if they said like, hey, we'd really like to do an episode telling the story of Beren and Luthien, they'd be like, no, you're not. Get out of here. No, we're saving that. So, but yeah, it'd be interesting because, you know, we've obviously seen a couple things that indicate first age material, which would not come into play in the appendices, that would reside in the Silmarillion or something similar.
Yeah, it's very confusing. I will say, from their comments and what they said, the rights that they do have, but just some things as far as like the timeline of things and characters that would normally interact around the same time are kind of being smushed together. I think is Isildur going to be showing up pretty soon in the season, and
yeah,
so yeah, it's all pretty smushed. And that's just probably one of the most disappointing things for me is just that there's so many stories and the fact that time is such a huge part of it. Right. But maybe in the future there will be something. I feel like I'm really excited for War of the Rohirrim. I feel like that's a format more suited to if you have like one little story, I guess, or one point in time.
Yeah, a self-contained story. Yeah.
But like this entire age, I mean, that seems like a pretty...
It's very big.
Yeah. And so they're smushing it together. But I don't know what the state, what their aims are as far as licensing. But I would love to see a Beren and Luthien film or
oh my gosh,
a series. That would be so cool. But that's in the... They don't have the rights to that, and I don't know if they can refer to certain things. Like, I mean, they at least mentioned Beren and Luthien in the films.
In the films, yeah. So that was one of the things. So I had Daniel Faulkner, who works at Weta, on for an interview a while back, and they talked about how they could like kind of tiptoe up to the line but not cross the line as far as what they're able to reference. So you know, there's things like etched on the swords that hint to like first age thing. So like so just a random example, so like Elrond's and Arwen's sword, they use the same sword. I don't know if you've ever noticed that, but the sword Elrond uses in The Hobbit is the same one that Arwen uses in Lord of the Rings, and on it makes reference to the sword belonging to like the daughter of the king of Gondolin or something like that. And so they couldn't say that it was Idril's sword, but they could say that it was the daughter of the king of Gondolin. So like, and I hope that like, I hope that like attention to detail like that is present in this series. Because the more I learn about the stuff that Weta and Peter Jackson and company did, the more I absolutely love those films even more than I already do, because it's just crazy the level of detail they went into. So Rita brought up a good question. Do you think they asked permission to use the name Anatar? And this is a good one, because I don't think Anatar is actually, that name is not used in the appendices. So if it were true that Amazon only has the appendices, and in addition to Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, obviously, then they wouldn't be able to refer to Sauron's fair form as Anatar. But that's a great example where they could say, hey, Tolkien estate, we want to be able to call Sauron Anatar. Is that cool with you? And the Tolkien estate would say, yeah, that's cool. And, you know, because the alternative is like, what are they going to make up? You know, like, oh, this is, like we said earlier, like this is John, you know, he's bringing us gifts and teaching us to make rings. Like, you know, that would be stupid. So,
I know that would just, if you can't use Anatar, then what's the point?
So yeah, so like that's, and see, that's why like I think it's more of a fluid situation than people realize. Like, I think there's a lot of people that think like, hey, you know, they have the rights to this, so like it's going to be bad because they can't do X, Y, and Z. Whereas I think, again, these are rumors from other sources than me, that kind of hint that there's more of a fluid relationship and fluid rights going on than what anyone is letting on to. I think they're all keeping their cards very close to the vest, but I get a strong sense that there's possibly more. I mean, even just the inclusion of the 2 trees in that promo image, that kind of
that did surprise me.
Yes, that, and another one that I've heard is, so the map that they released has Numenor. The shape of Numenor is the shape of a star, which is not in the appendices. Like, we learned that in Unfinished Tales, that Numenor was a star-shaped island. So just by them having that is pretty substantial evidence that they're not totally handcuffed by the appendices.
I mean, I don't know. I wish they would be more upfront about
we want to know
what they have.
We want to know it all.
Yeah,
they're
very. They're keeping their cards close to the vest, but I feel like they should be more open. I feel like they should have more of this open discourse with the fans. This is something that it means so much to so many people. It's probably one of the biggest fandoms. There's so many people who that grew up with this, that it means so much to them, that they were introduced to it by their parents or in other ways. They have such cool stories and how they got introduced to it. And so it means a lot. And I feel like they could use this opportunity to have them involved in a more substantial way with the creative process and what they're doing. I feel like the fans would really respond to that because it feels a little deceptive because of what they have to begin with. We didn't know anything about these rights. The state of the rights when the show was announced. I think we all just assumed that they had what they needed.
Right. Yeah.
If you're telling the second age stories. But then it turns out to be way more complicated than that. But I feel like if they just were more open about what they actually are doing, what they have, and what they are producing, then our expectations wouldn't be so, I don't know. We'd have more, we know what to expect. And that way we wouldn't be like really disappointed or in either way, or really, I don't know, just be upfront. I think would really help you and would keep the fans involved. I think that's what the Peter Jackson and New Line were always really good at. Giving out little tidbits and
that's so I was talking with some of my Patreon folks the other day, and like one of the things I loved about the Hobbit films was when Peter Jackson did those production diaries when they were filming them.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, the appendices, the special edition or the bonus features on the extended editions. Like, those are the best bonus features ever put on, DVD at that time. And I don't think they've ever been topped. And so they basically took that and were like, okay, we're going to give you a taste of that, but on the front end. And they just did a really good job of, keeping fans a bit more in the know. And so, like, I'm one of those who doesn't really like spoilers. Like, I don't want to know like the entire plot of a show or a movie before I watch it. But I would like to know a little bit more than what we've known about this. Like, too much secrecy leads to that's when, like, when your worst fears come into play and start like taking hold in your mind, and you're like, oh God, what's happening? Tolkien Reader has a good question following up on the daughter of the King of Gondolin. Did the estate give the green light for Gondolin? So in that case, and I'll have to double check that I'm correct here, but Gondolin is name dropped, I believe, in Lord of the Rings, because that is where the blades come from. Orcrist and Glamdring and Sting. So I think Gondolin is actually name dropped, which is the reason that they could include the name Gondolin on the sword, but Idril is not. So they could not include her name. I might be misremembering how exactly Daniel described it, but I'm pretty sure that's the inscription. You can double check me on if that's the inscription on Hathafang, um, Arwen's sword. But so one more point here in the article that I wanted to point out. I know we've talked quite a bit about this, but the most sophisticated prosthetics are thin and nimble and allow people to move their mouths really freely and emote in all the ways human faces do. And they also noted that, they're marrying CG and practical, which, I'm sure there's no shortage of times where we've talked about the blend of those two being a good balance is, pretty pivotal in today's film and TV world of realistic effects. Like, you're not going to have an adaptation like this with no CG whatsoever. But it's all about how they balance those and like not over relying on the CG. But it was interesting that they referenced the thin and nimble prosthetics because of what you were saying earlier, where even just by having practical orcs, it allows actors to not only act as the orcs, but the actors acting with the orcs have a human face to look at instead of a tennis ball.
Yeah, and the technology, has continued to advance with prosthetics and makeup, um, and we see the level of detail how that was in those images. So that's interesting. So maybe they can emote better with the new technology in that field. So cool.
Yeah, very cool. All right. Well, I will say there's a bit more. It's kind of more. I was scanning the article here. They go on to talk more about prosthetics, and that they're almost exclusively practical when they're up close on camera, which is good. Obviously, I think the close-ups is where you think back to Azog, for example, and that's where you
Yeah.
get into that more that less believable. You just kind of it sticks out when compared to something like the old school picturing like Jed Brophy and his Snaga, and took a little tumble off the cliff, that thing. Those are such great orc designs. So yeah, all in all, I would say, like you said, some of my favorite images thus far that we've seen from the show.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the most important elements to get right, so that's encouraging to see. Um, I hope that that level of care and research comes across in other things. Hopefully, we'll show more, and hopefully, we'll get more like with the Tolkien estate, and if this is a fluid situation with how with the rights and what stories they can tell.
Yeah.
It would pretty much hamstring them if they couldn't use Anatar. I mean, that seems like a pretty huge thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be a shame that if they
It's
had to
John.
leave
Just
that
call him John.
vague. Yeah. I don't think they would go with John per se. I hope not. I hope they would come up with something better
John
than
Doe.
John. John
Yeah.
John Doe. Oh my gosh. Um yeah, so I don't know.
Wink,
We'll
wink.
see.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see
Yeah.
what they come up with. I hope they're able to use the name Anatar
Yeah.
because that's what we've been talking about for ages, since they announced this show. Yeah, I'm feeling, I'm feeling on the uptick on this roller coaster that we're on. We'll see what comes next. So we'll have to get like t-shirts made or something. We're riding the Rings of Power roller coaster as
It
fans.
is such a roller coaster. It's nice to have things that excite you, and that's what we all want. This does excite me, and the level of detail, how much it looks lived in, and some with the elves and their costumes don't give me that same vibe. But maybe that will improve. I don't know. They definitely seem like they spent money. This looks like a money shot. I don't have to worry about what is this budget? You have this huge budget. What'd you spend it on? But when I see that, then I'm like, oh, okay, yeah.
Like, okay, that looks legit. I will say this. I don't know. You actually theorized that that maybe this helmet could possibly be a water creature, and I just noticed this one seems to have like a fin on it too. So I wouldn't think fins would be made of bone. Like I would think that would be cartilage, but maybe I'm splitting hairs there. But
or some other creature, or like I don't know how big trolls' skulls would be, or if there's some other creatures that has like a bigger skull like that. I mean, they'll probably be hunting creatures in the night.
Yeah.
But that looks interesting. I like the bone of it, the feel, and
I just noticed this. Those look like eyes? Eyes to you, maybe?
I did notice that, and it kind of reminded me of the elf's Ismael Cruz Cordova's chest, or
with the what I was theorizing that would be an ent, but yeah.
Oh yeah, but that it gave me that vibe. Like that doesn't look like his, like he made that. That looks like from someone else's make. I don't know if it's it just looks kind of
I mean, yeah, I'm like, I'm sitting here looking at this thinking like, is that 6 eyes? Like what? Like I would expect one eye if it was Sauron, like the Eye of Sauron logo.
And it looks different in color and it just looks like a mishmash of different armors, and it looks leathery, and
it does. Yeah. Very interesting.
I don't know that. Yeah, that could be eyes.
Yeah. Now I'm really curious if there's a creature with 6 eyes. That could be creepy. Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right. Well, I think we've gone plenty long on the stream here. Be sure to leave a like, folks. And also be sure to check out Elaine's channel, Nerd Cookies. She covers all kinds of nerdy fandoms. And you said you're working on a Dune video this week, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's a lot of Dune on my channel, but cover some other things as well. Battlestar Galactica, Stargate. So there's plenty.
All kinds of nerdy stuff.
Yeah. But thank you for having me on. This was fun.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on and chatting. Hopefully we'll have some more stuff before too long. Obviously there was news that just broke yesterday that the badges for Comic-Con this year have Rings of Power on them. So that kind of feeds into the theories that that Rings of Power is looking to go big with Comic-Con. So we'll see what they have in store. Hopefully a full trailer would be nice. I'm pretty ready for a trailer. It would be really nice to have now that we're
bring it on.
What, like 2 months away? For crying out loud. Let's
show us what you got.
Giddy up.
Yeah. When is that? When is Comic-Con?
That is the end of July, like the 20th.
Okay.
I think it starts the 20th, 21st of July. So a month. That's still another month away. That seems like a long time. But yeah, we'll see. Right. We'll see what they have in store. If they have anything else up their sleeves between now and then. If not, then I'll let you guys know. I will be reporting from Comic-Con this year. I got a press badge, so I will be there to cover whatever I feel like going to. I guess I'll cover Rings of Power for sure. I'll try to go to the panel and stuff. But yeah, other than that, we'll see what else is there. I know there might be some other fun movies that people are interested in, so we'll see. All right, well, Elaine, thank you so much again for joining me and chatting orcs today, and we'll see y'all next time on Nerd of the Rings.